Blah blah blah, words, 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 my favorite things, summer 2018. I feel like it's maybe once a year that I find a YouTuber on such a level that it gets me genuinely fired up to be making videos again, and this year that creator is Nakey Jakey. Jake's been on YouTube for roughly 2 years now, but whose channel has recently exploded with a string of high quality videos. There's a lot I like about Jake's videos, from his unconventional editing to his unique insights to his biting and off-kilter comedy. But what really strikes me about Jake is the level of sincerity in his work. He's not trying to sound clever or portray something he's not. He's just a guy on a medicine ball, very excited to talk to you about the games he loves. And sometimes it's hilarious, like his beer in video games, sometimes it's oddly insightful, like his Silent Hill 2 is beautiful, or sometimes just really genuinely moving, like his When Bioshock Was My Only Friend. And it was that last video in particular that solidified him as one of my favourite creators, not even really being a discussion on Bioshock, but more just the power video games can have in the times we need them most. So yeah, if you see this, thanks for making the videos, Jake. I like them quite a bit. I don't know what unholy magic the channel Mr. Nosec is weaving on their videos to make them look like this, but these to me are the very best of what AMVs and fan projects can be, using dreamlike frame blending to create an entirely different experience from the source material, to the point that I actually like their video of 3.0 better than I like that movie. Words are gonna fail me here, so just check it out. Mega64 recently released the Cell Saga in 5 minutes video, the long-awaited follow-up to their classic Frieza Saga in 5 minutes. And what I love about these videos isn't even just the hilarious level of homage to one of my favourite series ever, it's the sheer level of practical effects ingenuity that's gone into recreating some of the most unrecreatable scenes in anime. I also wanted to bring them up because Mega64 have been making video game-based sketch comedy for over a decade now, even predating YouTube itself, and are just a very likeable and funny collection of people, each of whom have their own spin-off channels and side projects, with the Mega64 podcast being a weekly ritual of mine for roughly half a decade now. I'll leave a selection of my favourite videos of theirs in the description below, as well as everything else I talk about. So, straight off the bat here, I want to warn people to not go near this last channel if you are easily bothered by anything, because Memory Hole has to be one of the strangest places on the internet. The story behind this site goes that America's Funniest Home Videos had a collection of tapes that were either too strange or disturbing to be shown on television, and that collection eventually saw the light of day in the form of Memory Hole. And so what you get here is these bizarre stream of consciousness style videos of just the weirdest shit you've ever seen. And you'll probably know from looking at some of this footage if this is something you want to go further with or not, but I would advise proceed with caution with this one. This channel is the epitome of staring into the abyss and the abyss staring back. Do you ever find a show that's so perfectly you, it's like you've been waiting for it your entire life? Something that captures your interest, ways of thinking, and even state of being to the point that you have to wonder how it came to be. Well, for me, this season, that show was Aggretsuko! Okay, look, I'm sorry, I just didn't like Megalobox, but it's fine, it's okay for us to like different things, that's what makes us special! Oh, jeez. I feel like if I pitch a 3D CGI Batman anime set in feudal Japan, I'm going to lose roughly half of you. So how about this? How would you feel about a movie written by the guy who wrote Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill and animated by the people who did the 3D JoJo's OPs? Well buddy, that's exactly what you get with Batman Ninja. One that sees the caped crusader hurled backward through time and then surrounded by a group of samurai wearing Joker masks. And we just kind of go from there, in a story that often teeters on nonsensical to the point that it risks plummeting into parody, but is held fast by an intense level of affection and respect for Batman and his rogues gallery. And one of the biggest treats of this film is seeing those iconic characters redesigned for the Shogunate era. I in particular love the redesigns of Harley Quinn and Catwoman. I don't want to spoil just how insane this film gets, but let's just say there's a point where a giant mechanized version of Arkham Asylum begins hurling gargantuan ninja stars at Batman, and things only escalate from there. No one on the internet is going to be brave enough to tell you this, but Magical Girl Sight is a silly, overly edgy show for teenagers, and I liked it. I'm not for a moment going to suggest that the show doesn't have a lot of problems. It sure as hell does, from its lackluster visual design to its stunted animation to its so-so characters, as well as a first episode that in particular really feels like gratuitous misery porn. But it's actually after that point I found myself kind of enjoying the increasingly ludicrous direction the show took. And honestly, a horror-tinged show full of magical girls kicking the shit out of each other was just too up my alley to ignore. Once you get past the initial edginess, the show actually does a pretty decent job of establishing the relationship between these girls and why they legitimately hate each other, as well as introducing some genuinely quite frightening villains. None of that is to say that this show is the finest that anime has to offer, but I'd also be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it for what it was. But I'd also be keen to stress that this is a show that can be aggressively cruel to its characters, with some really intense depictions of violence and bullying. So if you're considering watching this, maybe keep that in mind. Many people don't know this because they don't watch the last 40 seconds of my videos, which, look, I get it. But I host a video game podcast called the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast. But I bring it up because one of our most beloved segments has become President Evil, in which we've been systematically going through each and every Resident Evil movie, and have now found ourselves in the dark void of the Resident Evil CGI films. And oh boy, are there some real gems here, and in particular the third movie, Resident Evil Vendetta. And this movie is like a beautiful love letter to everything that is dumb and insane about the iconic horror franchise. It is a cacophony of batshit insane imagery and nonsensical shifts in tone and mood, and it is glorious. From the giant zombie gimp monsters to the reality-shattering conversations about how Breaking Bad was ahead of its time, it's a gorgeous mess of a film, and nothing I can say could possibly compare to letting you gaze into the eye of madness yourself. So friends, allow me to present to you the Resident Evil Vendetta wedding scene. Pocket Rumble recently released, and it's this beautifully minimalist throwback to the little known but highly enjoyable Neo Geo Pocket fighting games. But the real strength of this game is how it actually breaks down fighting games in a way that both veterans and newcomers will find something to enjoy here. On the simple side of things, all the game's special moves can be performed with simple inputs, with not a quarter circle or pretzel motion in sight. But on the more complex end, each of the game's 8 characters have their own unique systems and meter mechanics that mean they play entirely different from one another. Like Quinn, who can once per round transform into a werewolf, or Keiko, who delivers her specials through her cat Q. And it all comes together to make a game that feels like some bizarre love child of Smash Brothers crossed with BlazBlue. At $10, it's really good value, and it's out now on Steam and Switch. Okay, this one is a little bit special. I've been excited about Octopath Traveler since the game showed me a sizzle reel way back after the Switch's launch. And just, oh my god, look at it. This game uses old school sprite works, but does so while using modern day lighting, particle, and depth of field techniques, leading to this just incredibly sumptuous looking RPG that looks old school, but also like nothing that could have ever existed on older hardware. You start out the game from choosing one of 8 different characters, each one with their own backstory and starting location, and from here you set out into the world in order to find the other 7. All of whom I've experienced so far were extremely likable and interesting. Octopath is just one of those games where it feels like there's been love poured into every section, from the dialogue to the combat to the character art, and it's honestly all I can think about playing. So yeah, if you have a fondness for old school RPGs but are also looking for something new and enjoyable in the genre, for fuck's sake, check this one out. I like Street Fighter 3. A lot, to the point that it is unquestionably my favourite fighting game of all time, which is why I'm so goddamn delighted that it's received an updated version in Street Fighter The Anniversary Collection, letting me finally reunite with my exquisite karate empress Makoto, continuing my love affair with any fictional girl who could kick the shit out of me. The game offers a collection of 12 Street Fighters, from the honestly pretty terrible Street Fighter 1 to the aforementioned legendary Third Strike. And what really cinched the deal for me is the game's exceptional sprite viewer, which lets you tick frame by frame through the incredible animations of Third Strike and the game's other titles, and really lets you appreciate the intense level of artistry that's on hand. The only real problem is I've had trouble getting stable online matches, especially with people far away, which has let certain Canadian-dwelling cowards run their mouth for a little too long now. See you at MagFest, buddy. Be more like me and be less like you. A film designed to hurt people is how Stephen King once described Kubrick's The Shining, and while he meant that as a criticism, I think he actually really tapped into what it is about that film that shakes people like it does. And it's also that quote I couldn't get out of my head while watching Hereditary, a beautiful and upsetting new horror film about a family slowly coming apart. Hereditary is one of those movies that whispers to you that something here is very, very wrong. One that knows exactly how to leverage each tiny aspect of filmmaking to plant unease in the audience, with camera shots that linger longer than they should, low uncomfortable sound design turning day-to-day scenes into nerve-destroying ordeals, and subtle visual metaphors constantly hitting that there is something much more sinister at play here, culminating in some scenes that were so brutal and shocking that I actually audibly gasped in the cinema. I feel like I'm saying this a lot this video, but if you are not okay with horror fucking you up a little, do not touch this one. But if this sounds like it might be your thing, just know that this is my favourite cinematic experience of the year so far. Twin Peaks, but with rappers, is how Donald Glover describes his new series Atlanta, and the result is, for my money, one of the best TV shows of the decade. The story follows that of Donald Glover's character Earn as he attempts to manage his cousin Alfred, also known as Paperboy, through the murky waters of the hip-hop industry. But what's so cool about this show is how distinct each episode feels. One will be a nearly obscenely brutal look at bullying in the American school system, the next will be a hilarious venture into the intersection of corporate partnerships and indie hip-hop, and the next still will be a genuinely frightening dive into pure nightmarish horror, and it's all shot and conveyed beautifully, with the majority of the episodes directed by Hiro Murai, the same person who directed the This Is American music video, and written with the same creative edge that has pushed Donald Glover to the forefront of hip-hop. If you're looking for a series that is genuinely pushing the boundaries of what a TV show can be, do not sleep on this one. The show Barry starts off pretty light, nearly a whimsical story of a hitman summoned to LA to take out an actor who by sheer coincidence ends up enrolling in the same class as his target. And for the opening episodes, it feels much more like a light comedy, playing up on the absurdity of the situation. But let this one simmer for a little bit, and by the final 8th episode, you'll have watched the show transform into something that's more reminiscent of the harder moments of series like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad. As we watch our endearing but mildly psychotic hitman protagonist struggle and fail to break free from the life of death that has defined him, in a story that is funny, touching, and occasionally really brutal. And what's more, it does it all over a single self-contained season. While the door is left open for a season 2, it felt very much like the creators had a story to tell here and they just told it. And I think in an age where everything is trying to be this massive media-spanning multiverse, that's something to be respected. Lastly, I had the good fortune of being invited to Anime Expo as a guest this year, and I've always really loved going to cons. I like the merch, I like the pageantry, I like being in a place where people can just be whatever they want to be. But this year in particular was special. Not only did I get to meet some real personal heroes of mine, but I also got to do a panel and meet a lot of you, the people who actually watch my videos, which is always a really delightful and humbling experience. YouTube, especially the way I do it, can be a really solitary job, and cons have become this really good way for me to actually break out of that and connect with people once in a while. To spend more time with the people I already know and care about, or see the ones that I maybe wish I saw a little more often. And so I just want to thank everyone who made AX special this year and helped me remember why I do this job in the first place. So I guess my final recommendation for this video is go to a con, hang out with your friends, and enjoy yourself. Friends, thank you for joining me today. I want to give a huge shout out to Seamus, who helped me edit this video so I could actually take the time off and go to Anime Expo. Seamus, I'm going to give you 5 seconds here to plug yourself however you want, so go.
Thanks, Super Eyepatch Wolf. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I made a movie. You can buy it on Amazon.com.
Wow, that looks fantastic. You should go follow that guy. Second, I want to give a huge shout out to Poolboy for letting me once again use his Shooting Stars track, and who does other genuinely fantastic mashups, link in the description below. As ever, a massive thank you to my beautiful internet ghosts over on Patreon. They literally make this channel possible, and if you would like to become one, you can do so for just a single $1 over at patreon.com/Super Eyepatch Wolf. Also, come find me on the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast or on Twitter at Eyepatchwolf. Friends, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
You know, I actually really like Sword Art Online a lot.
Me too, it's so
It's the
good.
best.